Hello, good morning. Right, so I'll be continuing from where we left off. This is part two. When I did part one, it was getting a bit late. The video was getting a bit long as well, so I decided to cut it short and just make a second video. Yeah, so we'll continue from puzzle 35. And yeah, let me just take a while to look at this puzzle. Okay, so what I noticed immediately is that this king has nowhere to go because these two squares are being covered by the lights. Sorry. Oops. Oh, what just happened? Okay, sorry. Oh wow, who knew X was a short key for flipping the board on chess.com? Anyway, these two squares are covered by this light square bishop, and this square is covered by this dark square bishop over here. So if you can just check the king, it is actually mate. One way I see that is capturing on d5 here. Black will capture back, and when we play e takes d5, that is a discovered check. Now he can block with this bishop. I see, but I can just capture because yes, my pawn is on this square. It's guarding this, so I can actually just capture here. Let me just do one final calculation. Okay, let's go. Okay, first thing I notice is that the queen is hanging, and capturing here would deflect. Oops. Yeah, capturing here would deflect the queen. Okay, and this knight is actually hanging right now. If the queen can be kicked off somehow, so g5 looks very nice. But let's see what defenses he has. Oops, I did it again. There's a g5 here, but this doesn't work because I'll get the queen first, and he will get the queen, and I'll pick out the knight. So I'll still be a piece up. And g5, yeah, I mean he's not allowed to stay along this diagonal because the rook covers this square. The pawn's here and the pawn's guarding this square. So let's see where else he has to move. Well, the queen actually only has one square to go to, and that's actually here. Anywhere else is covered by. Oops, not this. Oh no, it's here and here. Yeah, one mistake. Okay, yeah, let's do that. Okay, there's a small mate pattern. Oh. But I don't think it's a small mate because the queen's the one coming here. Okay, let me just be clear on that. So what I mean is I give a check. So if black comes here, then this is a checkmate. Okay, if you can see the queen here, the king is here. But if I check here and he moves in, so I said small mate pattern because of the check here. Okay. So the king will come back out, and now the king is here, my knight is here, and the queen is here. So I was thinking the knight can move out of the way, and it'll be a discovered check, right? And so at that point, if the king moves back here, then queen, the queen moving here is just mate, right? But okay, queen's here, the knight's here because it just moved here, right? If the king moves here, then I was thinking maybe we could I don't know, maybe we could give a check here, and then after the queen captures, okay, queen is here, king is here, the knight is here, the knight is here, it jumps here, and I thought it was a small mate, but no, because the queen can just recapture the knight. Yeah. Okay, but I mean, check, he moves in, and this is a fork on the king and the queen, so I don't even think this. I don't even think that there's anything to talk about here, to be honest. Okay, so here's a smarted mate pattern. Smarted mate pattern or back rank mate. Okay, so I'll give a check here. Now he has two options. He can either bring his king in to h1 or bring his rook up to f2. So if he brings the rook up to f2, then I would simply capture it, okay, and deliver a check. His king will still be forced onto h1 because my knight is protecting the queen here. In that case, I will just drop the rook back here, check. He's forced to recapture the rook, and then finally my queen will capture and it will be mate. The other option is a check, and he moves his king in. So here's where the smarted mate pattern that I was talking about earlier will come into play. I'll bring my knight over to f2 and give a check. So if he decides to recapture, then my queen will just capture his rook here. Oh no no no! What am I saying? The bishop here is covering the square. Okay. Yes, yes. In fact, that is correct. That is correct. Yeah. So just because the bishop's covering the square doesn't mean we end calculation. I want to calculate on a little bit more. Okay, so I'll run through that line again. Uh, queen d4, then king h1, then knight f2, rook takes f2, then queen takes d1, bishop takes d1, sorry, and then finally, if you can visualize this final position for me, the enemy king is here on h1, uh, enemy rook is here on f2, and the enemy bishop's here. And you can see that there's actually no one protecting the back rank, so the rook can just drop down to e1, give a check. See, this rook is no longer here to recapture, right? So the white only has this option of dropping the rook back to f2, and there we can recapture it and be mate. And if I check, yes, and there's one final variation. So queen d4 check, king h1, knight f2, and then what happens if the king goes back to g1? So here's where we see the smarted mate pattern. Okay, where the king is aligned along the file that the diagonal that the queen is on, and the knight is here on f2. So knight will jump here, check. It's a double check, so the king is forced to move since you are not able to block a double check most of the time. King will drop back to h1, and we'll play the beautiful queen to g1, check. So if you can visualize that with me, king is here, our queen is here, and our knight is here, and everything else is still in its original position. So in this position, the rook is forced to capture, and now if you notice, there's not no one is or white is no longer controlling the f2 square, so knight can jump in, and that would be a smarted mate. So yeah. Okay, the first thing I noticed is that they are all on dark squares. The queen is hanging and the knight is actually hanging. There is this pin, sorry, this pin that we can potentially make use of to capture here, but the knight is currently defending that. So again, I see that if I capture here, I'm attacking both the king and the knight. The knight cannot block, but the queen is currently guarding that square. So is there a way to kick the queen off? Okay, so after thinking for a while, I think that the move is h6. Let me explain why. Well, white is now threatening to win this pawn, followed by check and mate. Black is actually already winning in terms of the material advantage. We have an extra pawn, and this pawn here is hanging. So I think that this, like the way to convert this to a win, is to trade down pieces, and just push this pawn to victory. Now we see that the knight has only one square it can hop to if we attack it. And I did check, yeah, I pushed this. I did check if knight takes f7 was a thing, followed by queen takes on c7, forking both the pawn and the bishop, but the queen is protecting the bishop, so it's not so bad. Yeah, and after that we can just bring our king back to safety if we do get checked, and we are up a piece. Yeah. So after moving here, like the point of this move, right, is to bring the knight over to e4, where we capture it, and white isn't forced to capture it, but white doesn't really have any other move they can play. They are no longer threatening back rank mate because h6 is played, and now our king has the h7 square. So white's best move seems to be recapturing back with the pawn. But you see, in the resulting position, there's double pawns here, and we are also up a pawn. But of course, we are going to give back the pawn, but it doesn't matter because we'll still be up a pawn after we capture over here. So the variation that I think my mainline variation that I calculated is h6, knight e4, then bishop takes e4, f takes e4, followed by queen takes on a2. So at this point, regardless of what white starts doing, we just start pushing our a pawn, and white's king isn't able to get there in time, and white's queen isn't able to defend against both the pawn and our own queen. So in this case, right, the next thing you want to look for is a perpetual, because obviously, if you can't stop the pawn, you're going to lose the game because of the material disadvantage, and black just needs to trade off one pair of queen, and then he can convert the rest of the game quite easily. So a perpetual that you can that we have to look out for is see after h6, then knight e4, bishop takes e4, f takes e4, queen takes a2, queen takes c7. Oh no, we can't play it. Yes, we can play a5 immediately, but then there is d8, queen d8. So this is not a perpetual, but it's just something to look out for, because after this check, our king is forced over this line, over to this square. Okay, let me just point out that the f pawn is now here, our queen is now here, our pawn is now here, the enemy queen is now d8, we have a pawn h6, and our king is getting checked, so we have to move over here, right? Yep, then, oh yeah, there's no perpetual because the pawn is here, and so the queen isn't able to come up here. But I was going to say anyway, even if the queen was able to come up here, we can just slide our pawn up to g6. Yep, and it's difficult for white to conduct any pawn storms as well because of this. Oops, I did it again. Because of this pin right now. Yep. So I believe that is the line. Okay, so he decides to capture here. Again, this isn't a threat because after we capture the knight, we can just move our king over. Alright, so for this puzzle, we see that this knight is going to be lost. I mean, we can just capture here. And after capturing here, we have a discovered check on the king. The knight can't move because it's pinned. Enemy queen isn't able to just capture our bishop because even though the bishop's hanging right now, because of this pin, like the queen capturing this will get rid of that pin, and so the knight would then be defending this if the queen decides to move. So the first line that we should consider is just capturing, like what's stopping us from capturing safely, right? And so what we see is that black can take here on c3, and when we recapture the pawn here, there's going to be this discovered check that black can do. Okay, getting rid of the piece that is checking the king, and also giving a check to our own king. But we see in this resulting position where the pawn, our white pawn is now here, the black, this e4 knight is now here, and it's a check that if we bring our bishop to d2, we are now threatening the queen. The queen will be forced to move somewhere else. If the queen decides to capture here, we can just recapture with our queen, and we would be up a lot of material because we see that white has gotten this knight, this pawn, and this queen, while black has only gotten these two pieces, these three pieces. And we can see that two bishops are not worth more than the queen and the pawn. So in that variation, white wins. But what if the black queen moves away? Right? Let's say, okay, so let's run through the variation again. D takes c6, then knight takes on c3, and c takes b7 check, then knight takes on b5. Now what happens if the queen drops back, let's say to b6? Maybe a6? No, in this case, we can just continue to capture the rook and promote to a queen. Yeah. So even if we lose this queen somehow, we would still have gotten a knight, a pawn, and a rook, whereas black would only have gotten a knight and a bishop. Yeah. So now, of course, black isn't forced to capture on c3. So black may do something else. If they do recapture the pawn with the pawn, then we will play bishop takes on c6 check, forking the rook and the king. Let's say the bishop moves here to preserve castling rights, and we capture the rook. After that, in this resulting position, the knight is still able to capture here, threatening our queen. But in the resulting position, if you can visualize with me, okay, the enemy bishop's here, our bishop's here. This pawn is no longer here. This knight is no longer here. Bishop's no longer here. This pawn's no longer here. And enemy knight's over here, right? If you notice, the enemy queen is actually hanging. So we can move our queen out of trouble. Move it here. Threatening to win the knight. Because knight is now pinned, actually. It's not able to move, otherwise we win the queen. There's no discovered check. And yeah, we can just scare you to recapture back or on the next move after that. So this would be winning. Yeah, we can. And yeah. Okay, so the first thing I see is this check over here. Of course, because we're looking for checks first. Remember, checks, captures, and threats. There's this capture. We also need to be careful that we have backrank issues right now. So if for some reason our queen and our rook isn't guarding the square, and the enemy queen somehow gets over here, or rook, we would be mated. And yeah, if our knight isn't here as well. In fact, if they can do something like check here, and then the knight drops back and they capture back, and all these pieces aren't here, then we'll be mated. Okay, so for this next puzzle, yeah, I did mention this already. Okay, so we see that the queen is hanging. We have like a Alekhine gun formation over here pointing towards the f7 pawn. The h6 pawn is weak, nothing's protecting it. And black isn't able to immediately threaten backrank mate. Now the move that I found is knight f5, and the reason for this is because the rook is actually defended tactically. Because if queen takes on f6, then there is knight takes on h6 check. It's a discovered check and also attacking the queen. So the other line is what if black decides to capture the knight, right? So if black decides to capture the knight, that leaves his king vulnerable. Then there is queen g3 check. Now queen g3 check is very forcing, which is why this line seems really appealing, because you see, if the king just goes to h8, then rook takes on h6 is mate. Because if you can see that the pawn has captured here, our queen is now here, the king is now here, and then yeah, rook here will be mate. So the king is forced to come here, right? Okay, so I'll run through the line again. Knight f5, then g takes f5, then queen g3, and then king h7. But after king h7, we have this move, queen h4. Now what this does is that it sets up a discovery on the queen. Okay, so if our queen is here, pawn is here, the king is here, you can see if the rook captures here, right, then that would be a check, and our queen can pick up the queen. on e7. So again, queen here, enemy pawn that was on g6 is now here on f5, and the king is now on h7. So what if the queen decides to move away, right? So if the queen decides to move, okay, let's run through if black decides to protect the queen. Okay. If black decides to do anything else, let's say rook to e8, right? Then there is still there's this move, rook takes f7, which forks both the queen and the king. And after the queen captures it, we can play rook takes on f7 check. Then yeah, we would basically have won the queen. The queen for a rook and a knight, which is worth it. And he wouldn't be threatening back rank mate at the end of that variation. But what if the queen just moves? The queen can move back here to d8 as well, right? Or maybe to c7. And threatening back rank mate. And over here is because black is sort of now protecting his queen, and so in a way he's pinning our queen over here. So let me run through the variation again. So there is knight to f5 and g takes f5, then queen g3 check, king h7, then queen h4. So if black decides to do something else, maybe queen c7, then we can just capture here. And after capturing here, the king would be forced back to g8. No, actually, no, sorry. So if the black queen moves out of this diagonal, okay, out of this diagonal, then instead of capturing the pawn on h6 with our queen, we capture with our rook. The reason for that is because we want to move our queen over to the g5 square to mate the king. Yes, and because you see the queen is no longer protecting this diagonal, so we can afford to do that. But if the queen, let's say, drops back to d8, right? Earlier I mentioned that it is now protected and still maintaining control of this d8h4 diagonal. Then what we would do, okay, is capture on h6 with our queen. The king would then be forced back to g8, and from there we play rook f5, and mate is unstoppable. Yeah, I mean, it is, you can stop it with queen takes on f6, but after that we would still just we'll just play rook captures on f6, winning the queen for again a rook and a knight. So now the next question to ask is, what if black decides not to recapture our knight on the first move? Well, in that case, we are threatening the queen, right? So the queen will have to move out of the way. So the squares I thought of were these three squares, and the reason for that is because I would think that black would still want to maintain control of or protection of the f7 square, because that is what we are targeting. So my guess would be, if I were black, I would play queen c7. That's because there are threats of back rank mating if the rook leaves. And now we know that the knight's on this square now. The knight's on this square, so it's no longer protecting this rook here. Yep. So if knight f5, queen c7, then we can play. It's a fork between the queen and the pawn. So we can pick up the pawn on h6, and that would be a check. After the king moves, if the king, so again, if I were black, I would want to move to the king to g7, and the reason for that is because we want to maintain control and a protection of the f7 square. It's going to be lost after this, after we move our knight to h6, because again, when our knight's on h6, is forking both the pawn and the king. So we would then win the f7 pawn as well. So we win 2 pawns in that, and we would then gain control of this file. So I would think that this is the move to play. Yep, so okay, so for this next puzzle, what we can see is that there is the first thing I noticed is that the queen is lined out along with the king. The white seems to be preparing to castle king side. Wait, yes, and yeah. So the first move that seems, also our rook is undefended over here, and our queen it can be argued that our queen is overprotected. I mean, overloaded. Yeah. But anyway, the first move I noticed is this, because it threatens mate. It also threatens the queen, and it threatens the fork here. So, and again, like when you're doing these tactics, or when you're looking for tactics, it is a good practice to always look for the most forcing line. So in my opinion, this is the most forcing because it forces white to have to deal with multiple threats. Okay? So first you got to deal with this threat of mate, then you also have to deal with the threat of the fork here, and you have to deal with the threat of losing a queen. So after a move like knight d4, white would most probably play queen c4, and this because the queen over here protects these two squares, and it also gets itself out of trouble. And so over here, but the issue is now that the white queen is overloaded. You see, it has to stay on this diagonal, and it also has to stay on this file. So one way to get it off the file is then by playing rook a4, attacking the queen. So if the queen just picks up the rook, then queen takes e2 will be mate. So the queen would want to stay. Of course, you don't want to get mated, so the queen would probably stay along this diagonal. But again, if the queen leaves this diagonal, then you're able to check and pick up the rook. But what if the queen drops back to... Oh, sorry, the queen is not able to drop back to a b5 because the knight is cutting that square. So, which is pretty unfortunate because after the knight hops into c2, forking the king and rook, let's say the king moves over to f1, you want to move away from the center because it's open, then you pick up the rook, right? The queen isn't even able to pick up the rook, our rook here on a4, because it's not able to sit here because the knight was originally protecting it. So I think that is the move. Yep. So this still doesn't change anything. Okay, I should have, I did see this move, but I forgot to mention it. And the reason why this move doesn't work is because when we capture on this on b4, the queen still isn't able to capture back because now we're not only forking the king and the rook, but we're also forking the queen as well. And but if, okay, do not get carried away, if the queen takes on b4, that is not even what we're prioritizing. We're just gonna mate. Okay, so we can still continue. Okay. Okay, so I do see that the bishop, the rook and the queen are actually lined up along this file. So it's when we see this this sort of formation, right, and the bishop is a piece that can move out of the way easily. It is something to take note of, that like this sort of pattern where the queen is actually sort of protected. Like this entire file is sort of protected by the rook tactically. So knowing this, right, I see queen d1 quite quickly, and after the king takes back, there's bishop g4, and bishop g4 is a double check as well. So this means that the king, you aren't able to play f3, for example, because the rook is checking the king, and you can't just eat the rook. You can just pick up the rook. You can just capture the rook on d8 because the bishop is checking the king. Oh my gosh, let me draw my arrows properly. Yeah, the bishop's checking. So that means, and we know that these three squares are controlled by the rook and the bishop. Oops. Oh my. Yeah, and the bishop. So the king's actually forced back here, and then you've noticed there's this classic mating pattern where the bishop's here and the rook is here, the king is here, and that'll be mate. So okay, again, the moment I look at this position, I'm looking for checks, captures, and threats. And this is something we should practice in our games all the time. This check seems really appealing because the king has nowhere to move, and I think that's actually just mate. Not sure what this puzzle is doing up at 44. Of course, this square is covered by our bishop with our queen here. These squares are all covered. Alright, so this is a puzzle that I've given up doing. I've taken like quite a bit of time on it, and I don't not that I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I spent about maybe 30 minutes to 45 minutes looking at it now. So I'll explain my my thoughts, and then I'll just make the move. And I'm perfectly fine getting this wrong because again, I'm interested to see what I missed in my calculation. Okay, so this is my candidate moves. These are my candidate moves, and rook takes over here. Rook takes on c8 is very appealing because the king has no squares to move to, and that is very forcing. So black has to play rook takes on c8, which gets rid of the defender, one of the defenders of the d7 square, which allows queen takes d7. Now the big issue, the big reason why I spend so much time calculating is because the king is able to escape on f8, and then g7. So, and I'm not allowed. Okay, so I do not have enough tempo to stop the king from escaping to g7. Let me illustrate this. Okay, so rook takes c8, Sorry, rook takes c8, queen takes d7. Then king f8. Now, if I play something like um, bishop e5, then black would just play g takes h2, and again it's mate e2. So I do not have the tempo or the luxury of making these non-forcing moves. So, which is why my next move uh, is queen takes c8. So I did consider queen e7. Okay, so let me run through the variation again. Rook takes f8, rook takes c8, takes c8, queen takes d7, then king to f8. Queen e7 is met with knight takes e7. So that is not available. And of course, I did continue to calculate down that line. What happens if I take play d takes e7? But the thing is, the king doesn't even need to recapture. He can also walk out. Again, he has this escape square here on g7, which is really annoying. So, yeah, captures, queen takes d7, king f8, and then I settled with queen takes on c8 check. Then the king would escape out here. That's his only move. And from here, it gets really, really difficult because I am not able to settle with what I do not know what the best move is. Right now, I'm looking. Bishop e5 seems the most promising. And from bishop e5, I've calculated what he would do. I would do if he plays f6. So if he plays f6, then I'll recapture. If he captures back the king, then that's where there is a winning line of queen takes on h8, and from there, I can just play h6 g3 afterwards, and then my queen is covering this file. So I sort of escape the mating threat. Maybe there's more over there, but I did see that if he after the queen check over here, if the king here moves to f5, then there's a mate. Bishop d3, and after that, yeah, so if king moves over, then white would want to trade queens, but if black moves down, then this will be mate. Yeah, and so the other winning line I see in the bishop e5 variation is, okay, let me just run through the variation again. Rook takes c8, queen takes d7, king f8, then queen takes c8. So as you can see, our king is here right now. The king is here, and he just moved over here. Now we'll play bishop e5 check. So if the king just decides to continue moving up towards g6, of course he wouldn't want to move to this file. The reason for that is because of queen takes on h8. And so king's here, bishop's here, queen's here. He will want to stay along this file. That's where I bring the next, the knight square bishop into d3 to check him, and then he again have to move here. Then from here, again the black king does not want to get onto the h file because of queen takes h8. So from here, instead of playing queen c1 check immediately, we can play h4 first. So h4, h4 is another move which is really tricky because if the black king decides to go down to no, the black king isn't able to come here because of the bishop in. But if the black king takes on h4, then there's queen takes on h8, and that is looking really bad for black because the black king will be forced back to the g file, and white will play queen g8 and trade queens. If black decides to take the rook, then if you notice the 8th rank is now no longer guarded, and the queen is able to move to check the king here and pick up the queen at the end of the variation on g8 again. So the only move for black, again, is sort of forced, is queen takes on h4, and from there, white can then play queen c1 check, and after this check, the black king will be forced to either one of these squares. Okay, so I've got square bishops here, light square bishops here, queen, rook is here, the king is here, and we just drop a check over here. So we can see the black king is sort of forced onto these two squares over here. And once the black king has moved there, then Yeah, so if the black king moves here, then we, yeah, okay, hold on. Let me think again. What was I thinking over here? Yes, so we'll simply play f takes on g3, which is now attacking the queen. The queen has no mating net, and the pawn is also protected by the bishop here. So that is the entire variation, but of course there are many things that are left out because it got really blurry. For example, rook takes c8, rook takes c8, queen takes d7, king f8, uh, queen takes c8, uh, then king to g7, bishop to e5, and then the pawn push here. Pawn push here is really blurry, but let's learn and see what I missed in the calculations. Okay, okay, so the line just ended there because it's supposedly winning for white already, but let's just take a look at what would have happened. Okay, so yes, this is what we saw. Now what if the king came up here? Let's see what the engine is to say. So yeah, this is correct, but this is what we want to see. So let's first verify that what we discussed was correct, right? So if the king moves up, yeah, this is correct. The king, you see, the king does not want to go to this rank because of queen h8. So the king will continue to move down. I see. So instead of playing, let's see what the issue with h4 is. So h4 queen takes, and this. Oh, okay, yes, because the rook is guarding the queen. So that is something that we missed in our calculation. And I did see this, but I saw no good continuation. So the king will now be forced onto the back rank. But the thing is, oops, sorry. The thing is, white no longer has this capture, so I did not know what's going on there. So let's say, um, okay, so this invites this check. So I would think that the king will want to move to h5. And what happens? Okay, then you just capture here, and white has no threats. I mean, black has no threats anymore, and you are up a piece, and you eliminated black's threats. So that's what we did as well. So the next thing we want to look at, right, is what happens if black plays this. So you check here. Okay, I saw that. But after the check, what if black goes down here? Okay, so you capture here. I see. So the point, I see. So you're not trying to go for any mate. I think, yeah, so my issue was that I was too caught up with trying to find some sort of mate here or win a piece that I didn't realize that this is a defensive move that I had in my pocket the whole time. So from here, yeah, and the reason why bishop takes g3 actually eliminates the threat, but the reason why you want to capture the rook first is so that you're out material. Because if you just capture this now, you can just move the rook somewhere. Okay, you won't move it there, move it elsewhere, and you will be down material. So you have to make sure that the material equalizes first. As you can see, yeah, as long as you can get your queen out, you can't just capture here again because your queen's hanging. So once you get out of the way, you can just capture and it's over. So what I missed in my calculations were two main things. That bishop takes g3 is actually a defensive move I have, but the issue is that you, there's this opportunity to win material first. So you can win material first and then play the defensive move. And the other thing I missed was let's see, main line, right? Yes, was that, wait, where is it? Okay, yeah, so we see the defensive move here again. But what I missed was, yes, h4. The h4 idea is something that I missed because after queen takes, and I saw that, you know, I played this, thinking that was okay, but I missed that the rook was actually protecting the queen. So yeah, there is also this there's been that puzzle. So let's just move on. Okay, so this is our next puzzle. So immediately we can see that we are about to promote our pawn. This knight is currently pinned, and if white can get both rooks there, they can potentially win our knight. There's also this check that we need to look out for. I don't think it does anything at the moment. Two ways white can stop pass pawn is 1-2. This doesn't work because our b pawn thankfully guards that square. Or, oh, sorry, I better not accidentally click anything. Rook f1. So my candidate moves just pushing the pawn because again, if you can, you just push the pass pawn. But we have to justify that, right? So we have to see if we can truly push the pass pawn. So if we play this, white can play this. Now you may think, okay, let's just protect the pass pawn. And then we'll push it and we'll win the rook. But white has this move, rook e1. which is targeting the knight as well. So now you may be thinking, okay, I can just promote, and if he captures, then captures my queen, then I would recapture with check, and then I'm up a knight. But the thing is, he may not capture first, and he would capture with check first. Actually, he would capture with the h7 rook. He would capture e7 with h7 rook instead, first with a check, and after you've moved maybe here, then he would capture the queen. Okay, but then this comes with check. Then you can just come to the knight. Okay, go down. Wait, let me see what I'm missing here. Okay, let me play that out. Okay, this, 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 this. Let me promote and captures with check. Let's say we drop back down here. No. We want to remain attacking the kings, the rook. I mean, so we drop back down here. But you see, okay, it's the reason why it's not winning is because we have to stay attacking this rook. So white can just go for a perpetual here and just keep checking us, and we are not allowed to. We can't really move back because the moment we move back, he'll just capture our queen. Then the rook will capture his rook on a1. Then material is equal, and it's not so decisive, right? And if we want to remain attacking this rook, we just have to keep going back and forth, and white can go for a perpetual, which is why there's not the most forcing. So then we can consider this check as well. So if we check here and he blocks with the rook, then obviously we would want to trade, and we would just do we want to trade. Yes, actually, it's quite funny that the rook isn't able to get to a8, and I'll show you why. So we'll push. Oops, wait. Yeah, so we're able to use the knight to block off the squares for the rook to get to the a file. Let me show you. So rook d1 check, rook f1, blocking it. Rook captures on f1, king takes on f1, a2. Now the rook is able to get to the a file in two ways. Actually, it's just one way, and that is rook h8. Rook h8. And after playing that, we can play a knight to c8, and the rook isn't able to get to the pawn, and we'll just promote on the next move. So that variation wins. So now we just have to check what happens if after this check the king moves here. Right? See, it's most forcing. He only has two moves to play. I mean, three, but I don't know. I don't see why he would do king h2. He would want to come to the rook and attack it. So rook d1, king f2, and I think we can just push the pawn. So he can't go and attack the rook because when we promote, we are defending the rook. So check moves here, push the pawn, and he isn't able to get to the queen fast enough. So maybe what he will try doing is maybe rook to f7, so you can at least win a piece. Yeah, but we'll still just promote anyway, and after catches we will move up here. Unfortunately, yeah. So he will win this pawn as well. But if he does capture this pawn, it's not a check, and it gives us tempo. Yeah, and I do see like some sort of ladder pattern over here. So we check the king here. Okay, just to make everything clearer, we have queen here, we have rook here, his king is here, and his rook is here, and our king is here. So I'm saying that we can give a check here. So it's forced on the e file, and we can bring our queen in, and it just doesn't look good for white. So I won't calculate all the way till minute, but my evaluation is that we are winning because we are up a queen, and yeah, it just doesn't look good for black. Like the square is guarded. If our queen comes here, this if our rook is here, yeah, I just think that there will be something. So at a certain point of your calculation, you need to also just stop because you don't want to take too much time and just evaluate the position, and you have to make a decision on whether you think that position is winning or not. So I think it is. All right, we'll just push it on. Okay, that is something. Sorry, I did consider, but I forgot to mention. Okay, so for this next puzzle, I broke my brains out for this. I took a break and came back to look at the position again. And yeah, so every time you aren't able to solve a puzzle, I recommend you just keep going at it. Don't give up and then play a random move, because the point of these puzzles again is to help you train your pattern recognition, to force you to go and find the winning move. So of course you may say, hey, I know it's a puzzle, I know that there's a winning move, but in my games there isn't a winning move. Well, again, it is puzzles, and we'll see this in the woodpecker method puzzles when I do it eventually. It's not simply about finding some tactical motif that wins you the game. Sometimes it's just about finding the best move in the position, even if it's not decisive. Anyway, looking at this position, we see that we are sort of art material. Not sort of, we are art material. Yeah, but we need to convert that. So this position is interesting because yeah, the king is open. I wasn't sure if we are going for some sort of mate. I don't think we're going for mate because it's too open already, and it's very difficult to corner the king. With a knight and a rook, usually you will have this. I can't remember what they call the mating pattern, but it's like the king's at the corner here. Then the rook is maybe here, and the knight's here. You have this kind of mating pattern, but it's difficult to get all those pieces in that position now. So the next thing I look for is maybe attacking the bishops. Maybe I can win something, and I do see that this looks quite attractive. If the bishop drops back, then I can do this and fork both bishops or skewer the bishops. Yeah, so that's one thing to take note of for the bishop pair, right? A big weakness in the bishop pair is that they will never be able to defend each other. So as long as you can skewer them with a rook on the same file, right, you will definitely win one of them. Yep. But of course, I did try this, and there are many moves that black could play. Of course, no, there's this fork here, but many moves that black could play that would make it much more complicated. And I did calculate it. I mean, of course, over here there's this fork too, and there's also this pin. But okay, let's say I capture here, and black can drop the bishop here. Then what, right? Yeah. So I tried chasing it around, and I didn't find anything useful or meaningful. So I went to go look at maybe chasing this bishop here, but I didn't find anything useful either. So the last thing I looked for was attacking this bishop. So when I bring my king over, I am aware that the bishop isn't able to come to this square. That's because our king is covering it, right? And if it drops back to these two squares, we know that if our rook gets to the same file or the same rank, then we can win one of the bishops. And one way we can do that is so let's say king g6, bishop drops to h8. We can do a check first. So rook e4, and wherever the king moves, we'll move next to e8. Yeah. But wait, now I'm thinking, right? Here, check, here, and now he's threatening the knight. So what do we do? I mean, we can just move the knight out of the way because the pieces are still being threatened. Yeah, so that's one thing we can do. But if we bring it out here, yeah, then we can just capture it here. So we've already covered that. The bishop can't come here, or here after we play our king to g6. And if it goes to e5, then we'll just give a check with our rook. We'll play rook e4 and give a check and win the dark square bishop. It can't go to d4 because our rook's covering that spot. If it goes to c3, then we'll just do a skewer here, or fork, not skewer, with our rook. So we'll play rook c4. If the dark square bishop goes to b2, then we would drop our knight to d3 and win the dark square bishop. And finally, the a1 square is covered. So we see that actually the dark square bishop, even though it is on an open board, is actually still trapped. So that is the move that we can play. Yep. Yes, we can drop the knight here. And the reason for that is because after we bring the knight to g2, right? Yeah, the king can go and chase it, but you see, after we capture the bishop, if the king chooses to capture on g2, right, we can drop the rook back, pinning this bishop to the king, and the king will not be able to stop, save the bishop on d2. So let's do that. Oh, I'm lagging. Okay, so looking at this puzzle, right, after calculating some lines, I think that my evaluation is that white's endgame is winning. Okay, but what we're trying to achieve here is trade off our pieces for black's pieces and capture all of black's pawns in the process. And with the pawn majority, maybe it is possible to go win the endgame even if black is up piece. And the reason for saying that is my calculations of queen to f8. So this move is really appealing to me. Of course, there are these other checks here, but this one brings the queen closest to the king. And the reason why I look for checks, no captures or threats, is because white, or rather black, is threatening mate in 2 over here. Check, check. Okay, I say check. Wait, sorry. Check. Then queen h2, then queen takes h2. So, or rook takes h2 works as well. Anyway, this is the variation that I have calculated. Queen f8 check. Okay, seems like an only move. So the king is forced to h7. Then we'll play bishop g8. So of course you could play queen g8 as well. I don't think it makes a difference, but it's just that bishop g8 allows for a mate if the king goes back to h8. That is something that queen g8 then bishop f7 doesn't offer. So anyway, check. King h7. Oops. Bishop g8. King g6. Then queen to f7. Check. King g5. Queen takes g7. Then king f4. So king f4 is forced because you see if the king goes to h4, right? Then the queen that's here can just capture here, and that will be mate. Okay, so the king is forced over to f4, and then we'll capture another pawn with check. The king would slide over to e4. As you can see, our bishop is here right now, right? Yeah, just to take stock of where all the pieces are. Then we'll play queen takes on queen takes on c6. I mean, yep. So over here, it's a check. The black king has a few options. He can go to e5, f4, or d4. So if he goes to e5 or f4, okay, if he goes to e5, then we'll play queen e6, and we'll put him in the dilemma again where he has these 2 squares to go to, and he cannot go to f4 because of queen f5 mate. So yeah, if he goes to e5, he would be forced to go back to d6 with our queen being on e6. If our queen gives a check and he drops here, our bishop's here, then we can play rook d1 check. After rook d1 check, he can block with either the queen or the rook, and that's where the trade happens. If he blocks with the rook, then we can play check here. Actually, wait, hold on a minute. Or we can play check here. The king will be forced here. Check here. He's forced here again. Or we could just no, actually, sorry. When he's over here, we could give a check here and just pick up the queen. No, but then he can take this and it's mate. So can't do that. When we check here, he can. Oh, when we check here, he's forced back up here. We can capture over here, check. Yeah, so this line is getting pretty messy and confusing already. So let's just start all the way from this position where the queen is here, his king is here. Okay, then we give a check here. And remember, he has these 3 squares he can go to, right? And if he goes to either to this square, we'll just come back here and check and repeat the process. Then he would go back to this square, and we'll give him a check here again. And he would we will end up in this position where his king is here and our queen is here or here. In either cases, right, we bring our rook out here to check when he blocks. So if he blocks with the queen, I think that's the most straightforward. We just pick up the queen, and after the rook recaptures, the thing is he's still threatening mate. So what we can do is bring the queen here. So he sees king is here, right? We bring our queen here, here, or here. We'll check, and then we will pick up the rook. He will recapture, but in the resulting position, he has 1 pawn and a rook against 5 pawns. and our king. So yeah, it's a bit dubious. I'm not sure if we win that. Honestly, I think it's still difficult. Yeah, but this is what I've calculated so far. I wouldn't take too much more time explaining my reasoning, but it's this move that I think is what can help simplify the position. So with the king here, yeah, and if he continues to go further down, oops, sorry, then the queen from, remember it was on either these two squares, right, can drop to this square for a check, or this square for a check. Yeah, so let's do that. Okay, so that's wrong. So let's go see why that is wrong. First, let's try again. So we know that this is wrong. Oh, let's just figure out how. Oh my goodness! I did not see that. I did not see this. There's something that I missed. So that was my main mistake. Yep. All right. Let's get on with the last few puzzles. Okay, so this next puzzle is pretty easy. It's just made in two. We see that our bishop is covering this square, and our rook is covering this file. So if we if we play rook g1, then the king would be forced to this square, and then after that we'll just play rook f2, and that will be mate. So, oh, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. When the king comes here and I play rook here, now this rook is no longer defended. I'm a clown. Well, that concludes trying to get to 50. That was a splendid blunder. Completely missed that. Yeah, but let's still try to solve it. Let's put the rook back in position. Yeah, so we'll probably have to start with this, getting the king away from this file, these two files, so that we can drop our rook here safely and push it back onto the h file. So it's probably check here, king here, check, and the king is forced here. And we have a check here, and yeah, that is mate because this is covered by the rook on g1. These squares are covered by the pawn on g6, and the rook here gets this square. So that is the answer. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That concludes the puzzle rush. Oh man, that's so sad. We're so close. Oh well. Better luck next time. See you guys. Thank you for watching.